I'd like to see which of you have actually done any kind of research, not through a third party, but actually have crafted your own surveys or some other instrument and have put them in the field, gotten the data back, analyzed the data. Can you guys sort of maybe I've got one, who else? So Becky, you've done that. Great. Marjorie's done that. Great. Okay, good. You can help me out as we go through since you have some experience because we are going to talk about doing research. And if you guys turn your cameras on, I think I can see some of you while I'm talking. Linda's going to put a worksheet in the chat. I don't see the chat, but Linda's going to put a worksheet in the chat. You'll need to download that because we're going to use that today because this is going to be interactive and you'll have an opportunity to actually do some work. So thanks for giving me your time today. Let's get going. Let's see if we can make this, why won't this go forward? Okay, here we go. So today, I want to be sure that everybody walks away with a practical plan to get actionable answers that are going to help you drive growth. That's important to me that you have that. As you're thinking about today, give some thought to one thing, just one, that you wish you knew about your customers that would help you make an important business decision this year. Let's just focus on one thing today that would help you make an important business decision this year. And it's something you wish you knew about your customers. So you can put it in the chat if you want, or you can just write it down in a moment. If you've downloaded that worksheet, that question is there. And so that will give you a place to put it. Okay. So it looks like this. If you guys have it in the chat, it looks something like this. So that very first box is the one decision you need to make this year that you wish you knew something about your customers to help you do that. Just put that in there and we'll get rocking on. Okay. We're going to cover a bunch of different things today, just to make sure we're all on the same page. I want to be clear about where actionable insight comes from. And it really comes from asking the right questions. That's the critical thing. It's not like just looking at data and trying to analyze all that data that we have. I know many of you are on GHL. Perhaps you have other sources of data, and you can get overwhelmed by data. The best way to get an insight is to know what you need to know. So the difference between research, data analysts, and social listening is really important because I am sure, like me and like Linda, all of you are in some way on social media, and we see all kinds of comments on social media. So I want to differentiate between social media and social listening and research, and then, of course, all that data that is we have our access to today. And we're going to explore how primary research reveals what internal data systems and social media can't. And we're going to look at the most effective research methods because there's lots of different ones, and I have some suggestions for you. And we're going to probably cover the top 5 things. Not that those are the only ones, but those are the most common ones. And I also want to be sure that I leave you with some things that you want to avoid because there are a lot of mistakes that can be made in doing research, and I don't want any of you to fall into those traps. We will have a hands-on exercise, and my goal is to get us there as quickly as possible because I really want you to walk away today with something you can put into practice. Okay, let's talk about where we can find data-driven insights. Well, we can find it from doing research. And I want to be sure that we understand what research is. It's a very systematic approach for gathering new, targeted information directly. In this case, we're talking about customers, like interviews or surveys. So, for example, if you decided that you wanted to interview 10 of your customers about unmet needs as you were thinking about some new services that you could offer to your customers, that would be an example of doing research. Internal data systems is about looking at the data that you already have at your fingertips. This could be sales data. It could be web analytics, like going into your GA4 or looking at your CRM data, looking at your email data. And what you're trying to do there is identify patterns and trends. So you might be looking in your ERP or whatever other tools that you use or platforms that you use, and you might notice a drop in repeat purchases. That would be using your internal data. You won't really know why that's happening. You'll just be able to see that it is happening. And then social listening is monitoring online conversations and sentiment for insights. So you're looking at that in terms of, is it a positive, a neutral, a negative, or something like that type of comment? And this is when you're looking for complaints about a particular product feature and you're doing it on social media. That will allow you to kind of monitor sort of the general feelings about your products and your services in your company. Okay, so now that we understand these three different things, let's see if I can get my machine to. We're going to talk about the fact that you can combine these. You don't have to just use one or the other. You can use all three to make better decisions. So I'm not suggesting that you only do one, but I really want you to be clear that all three can give you a much better insight. But it's really important to do research because that's one that we have a tendency not to want to do for a variety of reasons. It takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of energy, it takes time, and sometimes it takes money. So I know I get this question a lot. Why do I need to do research? I have all these systems. And I imagine, like me, you have spent some money on some of the systems that you have, whether that's Go High Level that you're using or some other application. And it's important to really understand that there is a difference between research and these other methods, and that's what we want to spend some time. Systems diagnose. Research helps you prescribe. So the way to think about it is your internal data systems that you have, they're like the instrument panel in your car. They signal when to act and where to look. And they can help you reveal patterns and even help you predict future performance, or even identify customers who are likely to purchase. There's all kinds of things you can do with your data. And that's a conversation for another time. But think of your research like being the mechanic on your car. It uncovers why something is happening and gives you some thoughts as to what to do. So the difference is between when to act and where to look versus why it's happening and what to do. And from that, you can prescribe how to fix it and validate your solutions. So you might have an idea or for example, maybe you're working on some messaging or positioning work or a brand and you want to get some feedback and validate that, or a new product or a new service and you want to validate that. That's where research really comes in handy. So without the internal data systems, you don't know if you even need research. But without research, you won't really know what to fix or what to do next. So that's why you need to have both. So what we want to do today is get under the hood. So there are multiple modern research methods to choose from, and different research methods are for different purposes. So I want to kind of walk through the most common ones. They're not the only ones, as I said earlier, and we can talk about other ones if you want to, but these are the ones that are very common and most often used. So we're going to look at focus groups. Focus groups gather group perspectives. They test new ideas and they explore reactions. So if you want to get some feedback about something and you want the group to look at it and give you some thoughts, that's a great time to use a focus group. So it's not uncommon to, for example, to use focus groups to test out advertising concepts, or to use focus groups to test out product concepts. Those are really valuable ways to leverage focus groups. Of course, you got to manage them properly so that you don't create a bias inside the group, but it's an excellent research vehicle. In-depth interviews. These can be done in person. They can be done virtually online. They can be done by telephone. Lots of different types of ways to do in-depth interviews. But essentially, it's a deep dive into an individual's experience and motivation. So it's one-on-one. You don't usually have multiple people in the conversation, and you want to be able to, have follow-up questions and be able to get into more detail. Surveys. I'm sure many of you have taken surveys, probably have done some surveys where you quantify opinions, you measure satisfaction, and you identify trends at scale. And then user experience. This is a really unusual research method in a lot of service companies, but it's a great thing for service companies to use because it allows you to observe real behavior and uncover usability issues. It's often used with product design and product work, actual products, things that people can touch and feel, but there is a real merit to being able to use that in a service organization, professional services. And lastly is customer advisory boards. And we're going to spend more time talking about customer advisory boards. Raise your hand or put a little thing in if you have a customer advisory board today. Okay. Customer advisory boards are one of the most effective forms of research that any company can have. All of us can have customer advisory boards. They're ongoing. They give us strategic feedback from key customers, and they can give us a lot of guidance. And they're relatively affordable, and they allow us to maintain an ongoing conversation with customers, right? And what you want to be careful about mixing customers and prospects on a board. That's a much more detailed conversation. But right now, when I'm talking about customers, I'm actually talking about the people that are already part of your customer base where they are leveraging and using your services and paying for them. Okay, so that's really important when you're thinking about your research methodology is to choose the method that fits your question, your resources, and your goals best. That's going to be very important as you think about it, because not each one of these has a different purpose. You can also do more than one method. So if you might start with a focus group and lead to in-depth interviews, or in-depth interviews might lead to a focus group. Surveys being strictly an online or in the mail kind of experience versus actual conversations. So that might lead to a focus group or an in-depth interview, all different kinds of ways that you can mix and match these. So I want to talk a little bit about customer advisory boards, because all of you have customers and nobody raised their hand saying they had a customer advisory board. And they are an excellent way of having ongoing strategic insight. So what is a CAB? Let's talk about that. And that is a very select group of customers. I would say somewhere around 5, 7, 9. That's a good number to start off with. More than 3 or 4, less than 12 kind of group that meets regularly and gives you high level feedback and market perspective. You can use them to find out what kind of challenges they're facing, what kind of experiences they're having in the market, what they're looking for in terms of service quality. There's all different ways you can use a CAB. It's important when you have a CAB that you have a give and a get. You're giving something of value to them. It could be a speaker. It could be exclusivity on a product. It could be a period of time they're using something free or before it's in the market. It could be any number of things that you can offer in order to get, because they're typically in this situation, you're not compensating them for being on your CAB, because obviously we don't want to, again, create any kind of a bias in terms of the responses we're going to get. It's helpful in the beginning that you have someone help you facilitate a CAB, but in the long term, this is, your customers and you want to be engaging with them. So CABs can help you uncover strategic needs and trends. They can build stronger customer relationships, and they can definitely help you guide product and business priorities. I know we all have a lot on our plates, and we're just starting out the year, and I can't imagine how many things all of us are thinking we're going to try and tackle this year. And so prioritizing is really important, and CABs can give us some insight into the best way to do that. Some keys to success with a CAB is to have clear purpose and member selection. I even recommend having a CAB charter. What is its charter? What is its mission? An actual document and rules of engagement. People who are on the CAB can appreciate that structure. Remember, the goal is to focus on listening. This is not a selling opportunity. This is getting information so that you can make better decisions opportunity. And it's very important that you have regular, well-facilitated meetings. This is not something you just do once or once a year. We recommend a minimum of 3 times a year. And it's one thing that can be helpful with some of the people we help put CABs together is that their CABs meet at industry events. So if they have a particular market they're pursuing or a particular horizontal, they might have at least one CAB meeting in person at an event that people are going to be attending. And that can be really valuable. So over dinner, over breakfast, over lunch, something like that. Because we're at the end here. So I want to go into your first next steps. First, if you didn't, please identify one business decision you're facing this year that you want to be able to address. Because in order to grow, you need to be able to make decisions and then act on them. Pinpoint the customer insight you lack to make that decision with confidence. What is it you wish you knew that you don't know, that if you did know, you could make this decision? Select a research method. And I want you to commit to asking your customers something in the next 30 days. It doesn't have to be a long thing. It can just, remember, you're wanting an answer for one decision. That's not going to be hundreds of questions. Just a couple of questions that will help you get the answer that you need. And remember, even a single well-placed question can unlock growth. So if that's in when you're doing the serve delivering, or if it's post delivery, somewhere in there, just thinking through what is it where could I ask this question in order to get the answer that I need. Okay. If you want to talk about cabs, you can reach out to me by email. I don't want to spend too much more time there. But what I would like to remind you is that assumptions cost growth. Insight drives it. We all think we know our business and our customers. We've been at this a long time. And so it's easy to make assumptions. And though oftentimes we maybe don't hit the mark with those assumptions. And we can hit the target a lot better if we have the insights. Primary research reveals the why behind your data. So I'm not telling you not to look at your data. Please, please look at your data. It has a lot of things in it that's really important. But then really getting underneath the hood, that's where primary research comes in. Use the right research method to lead to the actionable answers. It's important to understand which research method is best for what it is you're trying to get the answer to. And high impact research starts with the right question and closes the loop. The goal is to say, what is it that I need to know in order to make this decision? What's one thing I could learn from my customers that would help me move forward? That's the goal here, just one thing. All right, I have an FAQ. I'll leave this up for just a couple of minutes because there's a lot of questions like, how do I choose the right method? You want to match your business question to the method. So if it's qualitative information, that's where interviews and focus groups come in. If it's quantitative, then you're looking for surveys. If it's behavioral, you have something you want to see if how people are experiencing it, that's UX. How many customers do you need? Quality over quantity, but I wouldn't count on anything less than, 6 to 12 key data points for directional guidance. If you want something more than directional guidance, something that's a little bit more in line with being predictable, you're going to need a lot more than that, depending on how many your customers have and how many. But with just a few well-placed people and well-placed questions, the right people and the right questions, you can get pretty far with just a few folks. What if customers don't respond? Keep your outreach concise, respectful, focus on why it's going to be beneficial to them, and consider some incentives. Like I had mentioned, after the focus group, sending, an Amazon.com gift card or something else. Turn your research into action, like summarize your findings, share them with your team, share them with your customers if it's appropriate. If you're using a cab, they're going to want to know sort of what was the outcome of something. And then get clarity around the specific action you're going to make and close the loop about what changed based on their input. People want to know that if they helped you make a difference, they want to know that. And how do you know if you're ready for a customer advisory board? Because I know that can be intriguing and it seems like something you might want to do. If you want ongoing strategic insight from your best customers and you're really ready to listen and not sell, a cab might be right. But it is an investment of time and energy, and it will take some preparation. So I'm not suggesting a cab is right for everyone. It's just that something that oftentimes is overlooked and is a great vehicle for many of us.